Okay, transform boundaries. Part three, I can do this. Transform boundaries are where plates are just kind of sliding past each other. They're not pushing into each other, they're not spreading apart. One's going one way, one's going the other, and they just rub against each other. This is the most common boundary. There are thousands, if not millions, of tiny transform boundaries all over the earth. They tend to cause a lot of earthquakes. And if the transform boundary is big enough, sometimes we'll call it a fault line. So they cause earthquakes. And the most famous place where I think you'd think of earthquakes might be in California. In California, part of a plate is moving south, part of the plate is moving north, and in the middle of it is the San Andreas Fault. And as they pass by each other, they rub up against each other, and that causes earthquakes because it's not really super smooth. You're not going to see other things there. You're not going to see a rift valley because they're not spreading apart. You're not going to see any kind of mid ocean ridge. It's not in the middle of the ocean. You're not going to see very many volcanoes because magma is not getting out. The San Andreas Fault, if you look at it, part of this is going one way and part of this is going another way. And because they're doing that, every once in a while you'll feel an earthquake as they rub up against each other and kind of get stuck and slip and crack. The last type of plate boundary is called a convergent boundary. Convergent means come together, where these two plates, when they come together, lots of different things can happen. So you may see them called subduction zones. A subduction zone and a convergent boundary are usually the same thing. Subduction means it gets pushed down. So when these two plates crash into each other, one of them comes out on top, one of them gets pushed down. When that happens, that tends to form a lot of volcanic mountains. So, like mountains and volcanoes and stuff. Now, there's three different types of convergent boundary. We don't talk about them a whole lot. If two pieces of continent run into each other, if two pieces of ocean crust run into each other, and if a piece of the ocean runs into the continent. So, convergent boundaries are all about running into each other. And in each of them, take a look at what we see. Where these two smash together, a piece of ocean meets a piece of land, it created mountains, and I'm seeing this magma coming up to the surface. So it looks like it created a volcano too. In the ocean, if two pieces of ocean crust crash together, this one seems to be pushed down, it gets melted down, the magma comes to the surface, and I'm seeing a couple little islands forming. Now, it looks like they're volcano islands, volcanic islands. The last one over here is not as common. When India hit Asia, they ran into each other and it didn't push up very much magma at all. You see some question marks down here. They're not really, not, it doesn't usually happen. So it just pushed up a big piece of the crust and created mountains. The Ring of Fire, if you saw anything about the Ring of Fire, that's our biggest convergent boundary. In the Pacific Ocean, the whole area around North America, South America, the Hawaiian, I'm sorry, not the Hawaiian, the Alaskan islands, the Aleutian Islands, all the way down through like Japan and the Philippines. All of these are volcanoes. So the Ring of Fire is where there's a huge convergent boundary. You end up getting a lot of volcanoes in those areas, and you also get mountains too. So we'll talk in class about some of the rest of this. We'll talk about what subduction means, and we'll take a look at some other things. But those are the three types of plate boundaries. You should have your notes finished on the front and on the back.